It would be really nice if I could just tune out. And especially as a privileged white woman, it would be very easy to tune out. And I could live a very normal life without really any care in the world right now, and things would be fine because I'm not the person that this impacts. So there are moments where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I like this? And in those moments, like I have said to my husband 100 times, like, I am so sorry that I am the way that I am. Like, I wish I didn't care. I wish it didn't keep me up at night. Like, I
Yeah.
wish that it was in my core to just like throw my hands in the air and go to the lake and drink 7 beers without giving a shit that the world is falling into fascism, But like, I'm not. And I don't know. So yeah, I would love to paint this like perfect roses picture that like, oh, I built this new cool thing that I'm working on and everything is great and happy. And it's like, no, I did build this thing and I feel hugely purpose driven and I feel a huge call. And with that, I also feel a huge responsibility, which is exciting and challenging all rolled up.
Welcome to Citizen Rebel, the podcast for founders, small business owners, and bold influencers who refuse to stay silent.
These are the stories of entrepreneurs and creators risking everything to speak up, to stand out, and to stand for something.
And for those of us feeling unsure of how to react or what to say and do, this is a place where we can figure it out together.
This is Citizen Rebel, stories of brands taking a stand. Today, we talked to Nikki Sapiro-Vinckier, an OBGYN assistant who spoke out, lost her job, and is now leading an unstoppable movement on Instagram and TikTok to fight for women's rights. Welcome to Citizen Rebel. I'm Elena Shear.
And I'm Chris Vogel.
So how you doing, Chris? It's been a minute.
Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. Summer's wrapping up here. We're doing some killer brand work, and other than that, Legos and kids. How about you, Elena?
Yeah, I am really excited about our projects. We do have corporate branding projects, and we just renamed another company. When a company comes to us to rename them, it's such an honor. It's like no pressure. We need a new name, and you've got to come up with one that lasts forever. It's like naming somebody else's baby.
Then coming up with a name and having them get excited about it as well, which is what's happening right now, and now getting into the logo design, being able to actually work with a cool name, which doesn't really happen that often. Man, it's the best.
Yeah. If you need a new name for your business, please call us. It's one of our favorite things to do. And we will make it very cool. My litmus is always, I look at the youngest person in the office and I say, the goal is that you're going to wear this t-shirt, you're going to wear this brand. And they always look at me like, whatever, crazy lady, I'm not going to wear my company's t-shirt to a music festival. And I'm like, we're going to get you to that point. And
Yeah,
we did
no, I
that this
think you
time.
got it now too. I'm looking at those shirts and I want one.
Yes. So we're busy. We're busy. Busy is good. And meanwhile, the world keeps spinning and everything keeps spinning, you know, further and further into where we thought it would. We've got Stephen Colbert. His show is canceled. And I think with one of our guests, I said, we'll know we're in trouble when Jon Stewart goes off the air. But we still have Jon and many others. But this is pretty bad. And Trump has banned the Wall Street Journal from Air Force One. So we're starting to see this really big crackdown on the media and all kinds of other things. But today, we're going to focus on a story that is going to lift you up and inspire you in so many ways. Nikki has nearly 64,000 followers on Instagram. She's on TikTok as well. She's fighting the good fight for women's reproductive rights. And her story is so incredible. She has built this presence for herself online, but also a movement in and of itself. And she has, made waves with brands who are now coming to her for consultation on how to talk about women's health and these sticky political issues that people often want to avoid. And this all happened to her by accident because she took one small stand. And we're going to get into all of that. But Chris, what do you think of Nikki's?
Crazy story. Yeah, it's just a whirlwind. So excited to give her some of the deets.
Hi, Nikki. Welcome to Citizen Rebel.
Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
Our first question for you is just if you can tell us how you got to where you are in this moment, and at the same time, kind of introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, so my name's Nikki. I'm an OBGYN physician assistant, and I had spent the last 10 years in clinic, really finding my voice and finding what patients and people needed over the last decade, and really learning to kind of show up authentically for them and with them. And I think at first, when I was a clinician, I was kind of learning what that was like. And I felt kind of like a chameleon at all times. Like I would go into a room and be a different person for each patient, depending on what I thought they wanted out of the visit. And then I think over time, I became more comfortable, more confident, more authentic. And what mattered to me kind of started to show through. And I found myself, I live in Michigan, which is obviously a pretty strong swing state. And I had been in reproductive health care for a decade at this point, and the writing was on the wall for Roe versus Wade to fall. And
So what
so
year is
that was in
this?
2022.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it got leaked in May of 2022. I was on maternity leave with my third child, and reproductive health care had really kind of come to a point for me at that point. I'd had three children in a system where I had three unpaid maternity leaves working for an OBGYN office.
Wow.
Wow.
I had undiagnosed postpartum anxiety and depression that I missed on myself, my colleagues missed on me. And then when Roe versus Wade was falling, I just really felt like this is not good. This is not good. And I'm from California originally, born and raised. And being in Michigan, I felt like, this is kind of this interesting opportunity where I now have this decade of clinical experience in this field that all these people that have no idea what the hell they're actually talking about are trying to talk about. And so I started talking about it. And it kind of just started with talking about it with friends and family. And then over time, I'd have more friends and family ask me things. And then over time, I started leaning out more into doing advocacy things and roundtables and getting more involved in our state with reproductive rights. In Michigan, we were the first citizen-led ballot initiative. So in 2022, we were the first state to enshrine abortion into our state constitution. I got
Amazing.
really involved in doing that. I collected signatures for our ballot measure. It was all that my son and I did on my maternity leave. I would just push him 3 weeks old in his little, stroller through the neighborhood getting signatures. We did a lemonade stand with our kids and families in the neighborhood just to get people to pull over, and we gave them free lemonade for reproductive rights was kind of our whole thing. And yeah, it just kind of became organic that I started speaking out more and more.
So you said that you were asked by a lot of people, like, questions and expertise, and just there's an overall situation of just confusion or misinformation. Do you, because it seems like it seems almost like a calling where it's like, oh, you're the person, please come here.
Yeah, both. If you're talking about misinformation, that kind of all happened around the same time because we end up having this incredible increase of influencers who now also want to talk about reproductive health, and people want to talk about contraceptives and coming off of birth control and how bad birth control is for you and how bad your hormones are, and none of them actually know what the hell they're talking about. So yeah, it is this really interesting moment in reproductive health care where a lot of things are coalescing at the same time, where it did just kind of happen organically. I'm not very good at keeping my mouth shut, and so I kept talking about things that I felt were wrong in the system. And then kind of fast forward another few years, it was a year ago. Yesterday was a year for whenever you're listening to this. We're filming this in July. So yesterday was the year mark of Kamala Harris's campaign being launched. And so on that day, Biden had stepped aside and endorsed Kamala Harris for president. And I was thrilled because Biden, we had to fucking twist. Sorry, am I allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. We had to twist his arm to even say the word abortion. And Kamala Harris had a much stronger history of reproductive rights. So we were pretty thrilled that she was going to be the nominee. And I went to CVS, I did a same day lawn sign print, and I put a bright pink Kamala Harris lawn sign on my front lawn the day that she was endorsed to run for president. And I had a couple friends so that they wanted one. And so next I knew, I printed off 25 and I put them all through my front lawn, and I turned it into kind of like an honor market. If you had chicken eggs and put them out in the front, like your, neighbors could come grab chicken eggs. It was kind of the same thing. I put out 25 Kamala Harris lawn signs. I said, donate what you want. And enough people donated that it bought me 25 more lawn signs. And then that bought 200 more lawn signs. And then that bought 2,000. And I ended up distributing 15,000 pink Kamala Harris lawn signs across our state and all 7 swing states this past election cycle.
Okay, hold on. Pause. 15,000 across all these swing states. You are employed, but still on maternity leave, or no?
No. So the maternity leave, this is now like years later, right? Yeah. Roe versus Wade fell in 2022.
Okay. But just so
yeah.
Yeah, just so everybody understands, you are working while you're doing that.
Oh yeah. And I'm receiving boxes and boxes and batches of lawn signs to my house because nobody could get lawn signs at this time. The campaign was like so delayed on all of these things. And so we set up this like a railroad system of getting these lawn signs into all these different areas across the state. I had team captains all across the state. There were over 30 different team captains where they would come and pick up 50 to 100 lawn signs and then distribute them all to their neighbors. And they were popping up all over the state. It was the coolest thing.
So cool. It's like really like a groundswell almost. You can't
100%.
make it
It was
up.
like as grassroots as you could possibly have grassroots. And it went viral on TikTok, and people just started messaging me being like, hey, where do I get a pink Kamala Harris lawn sign? And I was like, well, I'm out right now, but tomorrow I'm getting 600 more. It was crazy. It was crazy. So that got me written up in the Detroit Free Press. That got me written up in Newsweek and in a couple of other publications. And simultaneously, as you mentioned, I was working, and I was, as you could imagine, somewhat distracted while at work. And that got noticed by my employers, and they didn't see what I was doing as beneficial to reproductive health care and didn't support what I was doing. And I think it started to feel like a little bit of a liability to them. I was told that same week that I was written up in Newsweek and the Free Press to take the pride pin off of my white coat that I had worn for over 10 years straight. I was told that it was too polarizing and that I wasn't allowed to talk about voting with any of my patients anymore. And so this was in September before the election. And I went back to them, and I had taken off my pins, and I said, just so you know, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the American Medical Association both recommend talking about voting as a civic duty in a nonpartisan way with patients. It is part of their health care, and I intend to continue to discuss this with them in a nonpartisan way. Granted, I also have a Your Body, Your Choice pin on, and my hair is purple, so like it is nonpartisan, but right,
it's a great point. Just because
it's a great point, right?
Is being a citizen, like being a healthy citizen, means being able to have democratic rights and being informed about them.
That's right.
And if you are able to do that in that context, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and actually there's an amazing organization. It's called VOTER, and it's all emergency physicians and emergency providers that they provide QR code scan things for their badges so that when patients are in the emergency room, you can get them registered to vote. And so that was kind of my impetus, is I was like, I know this is legal, and I know that if I do this in a nonpartisan way, this is actually part of their healthcare. And it wasn't viewed so by my employers, and they didn't like that I did that. And I think that going back to kind of the bread and butter of your podcast here is they really wanted to just like ride this vanilla line. They just like, they didn't even want to touch anything that was nonpartisan, because nonpartisan by nature is still political, right? And so they just didn't want anything to do with that. And I think when I pushed back, I had ended up stepping on toes, and I ended up getting fired within the next week. I was told that I was not a professional fit for the company.
Wow.
Yep.
Sorry, I keep saying wow. I don't think I've ever said wow this many times during
It's a
one of
pretty
our
interesting turn of
interviews.
events.
So did they not give any more detail? Like on why? Did they not have to? I don't exactly know what the rules
Yeah.
are.
So in the state of Michigan, it's an at-will employment state, which means they could fire me simply just for not even liking my political beliefs, which is crazy.
So is Ohio, Chris, where you live. And
A
many,
lot of states are,
yeah,
which is
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess I'm not familiar with the specifics. But I thought there was again, I don't know anything. Please tell me.
I mean, they would tell you that part of the reason why they fired me was my tone. Not ever that I said anything wrong, not ever that I did anything wrong, but the way that I said things was wrong. Which is pretty insane to me. And I just, in retrospect, I think back on the employer, and my husband and I talk about this often. And he says, if they hadn't fired you in the climate we are in now, you wouldn't have lasted there another 6 months.
Why?
Because we were fundamentally opposed, right?
Got it. Yeah.
For me, staying quiet, and I'm sure this resonates with so many people who are listening to this, for me, staying quiet was not an option. And so why it worked before is I could do things in a nonpartisan way that still felt like I wasn't abandoning what I held true to my virtues. But if I even had to get rid of that, then it felt like I was being stripped down to the bare minimum. And that didn't feel good. And for example, like 2 years prior to being fired, I had fought with them at a doctor's meeting to get our pronouns added to our bios, just pronouns. Like, let alone the fact that for me to redo our intake forms had taken eons, and like I couldn't even get all the things that I wanted on it because we didn't want to offend people, right? And the day that I got fired, they took my name off of the website and they took all the pronouns down from all of the providers.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, we weren't, like, this wasn't gonna work much longer.
Right. And so many of our listeners and my friends and people right now feel this values conflict with their employer. So I want to get into how it felt immediately after. Of course, and this is the worst nightmare, right? Your story is what so many fear. We fear that if we speak out, we will be fired. We will lose a client. We will lose money. We will lose stability. And you did that, and the worst happened, the quote unquote worst. I have the air quotes for anyone listening. I think it's great, but I don't know how well you know me, but I'm a huge like change agent, like, yeah, go get fired, everybody. So this
Yeah, I can
seemingly
take this one.
absolutely,
From my
yeah,
perspective, it would be the worst thing happening. I would be terrified. But that seems to be my common response to anything. How would you feel about it?
yeah. So how did you feel about it, Nikki, right when it happened? And then how do you feel now? And then we can get into what's happened since.
Yeah, as it was like, I think for me, because it had built up over the prior couple weeks into this like really uncomfortable situation where I felt like I didn't feel good. Like, in a way, there was this feeling of being released a little bit, which was nice. I think before they had fired me, there was this feeling where I think I knew this isn't going to work. But it's like being in a relationship, like you may know it's not going to work, but you still want to be the one to break up with them on your own terms at your own timeline.
Yeah, it stings,
It
regardless.
stings. It
Yeah.
really stung. And I had been there for 9 years. I think I felt sad for my patients that I feel fully confident I provided excellent healthcare. And I know that there are a lot of my patients that will struggle to be able to find the care that I provided. And so I feel bad for them. And like, you know,
The whole what were you thinking? Where was your mindset? Were you thinking I've got to go find another job?
well, at this
Or
point, thankfully, I'm like, I got to get rid of 15,000 lawn signs.
okay, so take us from there. So
Right?
you've got
So
a lot to
I'm
do.
like,
You've got
I'm gonna rebound
15,000.
boyfriend now.
Yeah. This is the kind of an ideal mix because you get to pour all of that
Yeah,
grief and rage and all of those emotions into this new thing. So
yeah.
take us from there.
Yeah,
What
so that's
happened?
what I did is I just kind of picked up and pivoted into activism, and I started continuing to create content online, and I now had this newfound platform of people that were really pissed that I got fired too. So
Nice.
now I have like a platform and a lot of activated friends and listeners and people that are like really ready to enact change, which was cool.
So when you
And
say platform, can you be more specific? Like where are you and how do
yeah,
you like traverse the world?
great question. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok. And at this time, let's say when I was on Instagram before I got fired, I had about 5,000 followers. And then by the end of the weekend, after posting that I got fired, I was up to like 12,000 followers in a weekend. So yeah, it wasn't huge, but it was enough that like all of these posts were still going viral about these lawn signs and like we were getting the word out, right? And on TikTok I had like 20,000 followers, 30,000 followers, something like that.
And now for those who you weren't a content creator,
I was
really.
not a content creator. Nope, sure was not. I'm just an OBGYN PA who just has completely done this accidentally. Uh-huh.
So tell us about, and I encourage everyone listening to this to go follow Nikki on Instagram. And what's your handle? Sorry, I don't have it memorized.
It's okay. It's Nikki Vink,
Okay.
Nikkivinck. Yeah.
Okay. Follow her on Instagram, but you can go back and look at these. But can you tell us what type of content as a non-content creator you are creating and how that felt, how time intensive it was?
Yeah, I mean, probably by now you can imagine exactly what content I create by having heard from, 10 minutes of my story as I talk about reproductive rights, reproductive access, and the healthcare
Let
system,
me describe it.
etc.
Let me describe it. Let me
Okay.
try.
Okay.
Okay. So it's really refreshing and you do a lot of videos on just right there monologues of yourself explaining some nuanced issue to everybody. You're keeping up with the news and current events at the same time. And I think the monologue videos are big on your feed, right? But it's the style. It's like you have a very light, optimistic attitude about a really awful, treacherous, kind of like deep, dark kind of issue. Women's rights right now, it's in this dark place, but you have a light that you are bringing to it.
Thank you.
That's my sense. That's how I feel when I watch you. It makes me happy, which is really weird because if
Huh,
I'm watching content about
thank
these
you.
issues, I usually don't feel happy. I don't feel optimistic, but you manage to do all of those things and keep me informed.
Thank you. That's a nice compliment.
So somehow you just, you did that. And it's interesting because you were a care provider. So you're meeting with patients all the time. I wonder if you took your natural kind of bedside nature into this
Yeah,
platform with the
100%.
audience.
And I look around at a lot of progressive content creators right now, and a lot of us come from these, it's when we talk about content creators, I think I had this outdated view that it was like, either mommy bloggers or, lifestyle influencers that are just talking about what they're wearing every day. And now when I look at and no shame to those who are doing that. It's hard work and it's really a lot of detail that's not in my brain. But when I look at some of the progressive content creators that I follow and that I admire, like there's a reason why there's a ton that are attorneys. A
Uh-huh.
ton. And then there's a bunch that are healthcare providers too, because if I think about it, like we're so used to taking these really complex topics and breaking them down into bite-sized pieces. That's what I had done in the clinic for 10 years. You've got this really complex diagnosis or this complex concern, and I'm going to talk to you in a way where you understand it and you're not scared of it anymore, right? So it was kind of this natural transition into content creation. Um,
That's an
also,
interesting way to look at it too.
yeah,
Like just as an expert trying to convey information, because I struggle with that all the time, is like, what you know what is it that you say, how do you say it? And I love that approach of, it's just trying to make people, help give people access to information, really, right?
That's right. That's right. And I think that people are looking for accurate information.
And so you're providing this content, you are riding this, wave of did it feel uncertain? Did you have a plan at all?
I got so lucky. I just kind of got wrapped up in the campaign, which was pretty fun. So I joined the Creators for Kamala group, and I was going to all these different campaign rallies. And again, I'm in a swing state. So Kamala Harris is in our state every fourth day. It feels like she had like a million rallies while she was here because she really, they needed to win Michigan. And so there was a lot to do on the ground, boots on the ground here in Michigan. And when there wasn't at a rally, I was door knocking, and I just said to myself, I'm going to throw myself fully into campaigning for Kamala Harris for the fall. And then after the election, I'll pick my head up and see where the chips fall.
And Michigan was like a hotbed too, right? I mean,
Oh,
wasn't that
yeah.
also where there was the plan to kidnap the governor or something
Yeah,
like
that was
that?
a
I
few
mean,
years
it seems
ago.
like there was a lot going on. It's just,
But Chris, the plan to kidnap Gretchen Whitmore was hatched in Dublin, Ohio, about
Oh,
15 miles from your house. And then they drove up into Michigan.
so it's
So
like
I
the
just
Wright
wanted to point
brothers,
that out.
where
Yeah.
they hatched the plan to fly, but then they went to North Carolina to actually do it.
Right, exactly, just like that. It is
Gotcha.
important. It's just a little nuance that made me realize that Ohio is not for me anymore. It's like those guys met at like the Tim Hortons in Dublin or something.
mhm.
So keep going.
Yeah.
So this is happening. There's a hotbed it's a very swing state. It's very
Yeah, it's a
tense.
very swing state. I mean, to this day, it's such a swing state. Trump won the ticket, and Alyssa Slotkin, a Democrat, won our
Yeah.
state senate or our state senator. So, it's like it's such a close neck and neck state, which is interesting, to split the ticket like that. So then we lost, obviously, and I
How
took a
did that
day.
go? Like, because that must have been like a massive blow, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
on
mean, just
so
like
many dimensions. You think about professionally, personally, politically. I don't know. I just,
yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, it almost felt, I think the part that was hardest, if we're circling back to the professionally thing, was it almost felt like it gave them merit. Like it almost felt like, oh, maybe they were onto something. Because if Kamala Harris had been a landslide victory, then I would have been like, well, why didn't you let me wear my pride pin? Like, we're the obvious majority, you know? But almost in like having a defeat, it was like almost the second blow of like, fuck, not only did I miss it politically, but like I'm missing it within our community and I missed it in the country. Just like every polar thought, I mean, it was like we weren't alone. Every polling predicted this wrong. So it was I think all of us had these elements of disappointment. But from a professional standpoint, I do think it made me feel so much more disappointed because I was like, man, in a shitty way, like maybe they were right to fire me, right? Maybe they were right to just like cut their losses, get rid of their risk, maintain their business profile, keep their steady income, stay in their vanilla lane, and just charge forward. And that's why I say I could have never stayed there another 6 months. Because especially with a Trump presidency, I think with a Kamala Harris presidency, it would have been fine because it wouldn't have been like falling into turmoil where I would have felt so compelled to be speaking up. But knowing that we lost, like the decision that they had made to fire me and maintain this like no polarizing tactic is a position, and I definitely had different feels about it after we lost.
Yeah.
If
I mean,
Go
there's a
ahead.
lot of companies. I always just think back to like 1933 and, Volkswagen and those companies that are just like, hey, man, we're just making cars.
Totally.
Just
But
don't
like the
look over
problem
here. We're
is
not
we're not
looking
just
anywhere
making
either.
cars, we're doing reproductive health care.
Right. And then this
And
is,
abortion bans are rampant. And like that's the problem is like yes, totally. But we're not just making cars. Like what we do is inherently political, reproductive health care is inherently political. And all you guys need to say is that. Like, you don't have to come out and be like, yes, you don't have to put one of my pink Kamala Harris lawn signs in front. But what you do have to say is put our pronouns on that are she, her. You do have to have like, hey, I can talk to you about all of your options. Because even according to ACOG, which is the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, abortion is healthcare, right? Like there are so many ways where you can still have a stance and do it in a way that I don't think would have cost them the business. And they just were too pussy shit to like tiptoe anywhere near it, you know?
And that's a good example of an entire industry that could be a significant voice right now politically to steer history in one way or the other, and a huge lobby as well, the healthcare industry. And just even the broader healthcare industry. We could look just at women's health, but even you pull out and you imagine what would happen if all of those companies banded together to speak out against this administration and what they're doing to our healthcare, for example. And then you go to different industries and it's the same story with every single one of them. And climate change, just pick your issue, right? And that's why this podcast exists, I guess. I want to ask you a question. When at that time when you felt like, wow, they won and maybe they were right. So I'd say that's the low point, feeling that way. And I know that feeling the first time Trump won it. I know we felt that way looking around at our neighbors like, what the hey is happening here? You're feeling oppressed and all this. If I were to come up to you at that time and say, hey, Nikki, so do you want to start applying for jobs now? What would you have said?
So what I did in that moment was I still wasn't yet ready to be looking for paid employment. I still was angry, more angry actually, because now I had reason to be angrier. And when we lost, what I did was I kind of had the idea of I think I'm unemployable at this point because I'm so insufferable.
Yeah.
Where I said, I don't know of anywhere that will hire me right now that I actually want to work. So I need to figure out a way that I can make ends meet for myself. And so within 2 days, I filed for an LLC. And within 10 days, I launched an entire website and organization called Take Back Trust, which does direct to patient education and empowerment within reproductive health care. Because what happened was in those 2 days of mourning, when we had lost, I was getting all these text messages from friends, messages from followers with things like, oh my God, my IUD is going to expire. Can I replace it early? And I was like, yes, you can. And here's how. Or I have frozen embryo in Alabama. What should I do about that? Right. Or like just anything that had to do with reproductive health care, which was now going to be at risk, knowing that the Trump administration was coming back in 3 months from then. So instead of just like responding to people, essentially anytime I got a question, I built out a full blog post answer, and I created a whole website where there was a place where those questions could live so that people could learn what to do with their reproductive health care within this changing landscape, which is really freaking.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So when you are forming a community, wherever you may be, for anyone listening and you're hearing this and you want to relate it back, any network, Facebook groups, a LinkedIn post, a YouTube video, comments are the place to go to pull on new content ideas and what your audience is needing and wanting. So you're just reacting to that naturally, Nikki. And in the meantime, you're building all these posts. So you have search engine stuff going on. You've got your social presence still flying. And so is that becoming at this point a revenue stream for you so you can start to see the light of this could be an income?
Yes, it could be. When I say we, it's me, right? I bootstrapped it for a long time and I worked with several different business consultants. There were some remarkable people on the internet that would throw donations at the website, and they'd come in $5, $10, $25, $50 increments, right? They weren't large donations by any amount. And then I partnered with Kendakist, who's an awesome jeweler, to make these necklaces, and that
And
helped.
tell us about your necklace.
Yeah, that's our logo. So it's a little uterus, which is pretty cool. And she donates 50% of her proceeds to Take Back Trust. And so none of Take Back Trust has paid me yet for the work that I do, right? The hours of endless labor. And the goal is, I think that eventually that could be something that I either am the executive director of, which is a full nonprofit, or that I will be the president of the board and hire out an executive director to then run it. So that's kind of the thought process there. I've now built out my following on Instagram, where I do quite a bit of content as well, which has been fun. And then just, yeah, kind of different brand partnerships and strategy around messaging reproductive rights. And I think a lot of that, like we were talking about, are these exact things that I'm like, oh, my clinic should have said this, right? Like if they wanted to do these things, if they wanted to be this in the movement or this in the moment, like these are ways they could have messaged it. And these are the vacancies in the space. And so that was kind of where I ended up finding myself, was kind of in the middle of being a healthcare practitioner, being a big abortion advocate and activist, and then now having this social media presence, really kind of melding those worlds of, okay, how do I teach other orgs and other companies how to have a strong voice within this era? And so that's now how I spend all of my time.
That's
And
great.
that's your replacement income, is that content creator side,
Yeah, it's like a
brand
combination of
strategy.
all of these things,
Okay.
right? It's just it's kind of figuring out all of that. And then I'm writing a book right now as
Okay.
well, which is exciting. So I just signed a publishing deal today, actually, which
Wow.
is
Oh my
cool.
God.
Yeah, so it's officially official. And the book is all about kind of talking about the flaws within reproductive health care. And so yeah, it's been a full circle moment to be like, oh, I watched all of these things happen and I got frustrated by these things, and that frustration caused this and that led to this, and then it's like, you get this inside view into it. And here we are.
Fascinating. It's what a year, huh?
It's been a surprise. The funniest is, so my kids are 7, 5, and 3. And when you ask my son what his mom does, he's like, she just does Instagram. And he calls it Instagrim. And he like writes it grim, Grim. And I'm like, it is perfect. Because that's exactly what it feels like some days. It's very grim.
So, so big things are on the horizon for you. You've got the book and your Instagram and so much more coming that will come from the book. And if we were to say, like comparing today to you, let's say 2.5 years ago, when you had no idea any of this was coming, how satisfied are you with yourself, your career, your spirit? Like, how do you feel in comparison?
Oof, that's a good question. Oof. I feel satisfied. I feel exhausted because I feel like I'm constantly in fight or flight. So I will not paint it all as roses, because I feel like I have to constantly be tuned in to how miserable the world is right now. And that's really hard, because it would be really nice if I could just tune out. And especially as a privileged white woman, it would be very easy to tune out. And I could live a very normal life without really any care in the world right now, and things would be fine, because I'm not the person that this impacts. So there are moments where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I like this? And in those moments, like I have said to my husband 100 times, like, I am so sorry that I am the way that I am. Like,
Oh my
'cause
gosh,
there's,
that's crazy. I say the same thing to my husband all the time.
yeah,
I'm
like
like, I'm
there's
so
such an
sorry,
easier
honey.
way to be. Like, I wish I didn't care. I wish it didn't keep me up at night. Like, I
Yeah.
wish that it was in my core to just like throw my hands in the air and go to the lake and drink 7 beers without giving a shit that the world is falling into fascism, But like, I'm not. I'm not. And I don't know. So yeah, I would love to paint this like perfect roses picture that like, oh, I built this new cool thing that I'm working on and everything is great and happy. And it's like, no, I did build this thing and I feel hugely purpose driven and I feel a huge call. And with that, I also feel a huge responsibility, which is exciting and challenging all rolled up together.
It sucks the energy out of you. Like,
Yeah, but it's interesting. That's a good point. It's like it sucks out different energy. Like I felt as a clinician, I was a caregiver all the time. And so I came home and then my kids would want more from me. And I felt like I didn't have anything else to give from a caregiving standpoint. Like now it's like it's just like different things that are being sucked out of me. And part of that is really activating for me. Like I'm getting to do other strengths that I haven't tapped into in a long time in medicine. I'm really enjoying certain creative sides of it. Um,
How
so yeah,
about
it's
the
different.
feeling, and I appreciate so much that you're it's not all roses. And when you follow people on Instagram, and we talked about content creators briefly before, they do paint this very rosy picture, some of them depending on their content. But even it is an immense amount of work. It is exhausting. It's a different kind of energy. It's not all sailing off into the sunset because you have a book deal and a huge account. It's a whole different life. It's a whole different lifestyle.
I would
Mhm.
also
And
imagine it's more interwoven, right? It's hard to delineate, especially if you were a medical
Yes.
practitioner with the shifts, right? When the shift ends, then
Yes.
you're able to walk away, but there's no shift here.
Oh, that is exactly it. Is that I was used to like a 20-minute block where I could chart in my 20 minutes and then it's like closing a book and putting it away. And then you open up the next book, you see the patient, you chart on the patient, you close the book, you put it away. So like the amount of things that just linger, my brain isn't used to lingering and I'm not good at that. Like that's the part where I'm like I feel like I need to retrain myself. And honestly, I think that's probably why I'm exhausted all the
I
time.
think so. As someone who's been doing this crazy stuff for since I started my blog about being a single mom when I was 27 and I had the craziest commenters. It was a very popular blog and that for me was my first wow. So it's been a while and back then when I compare myself then to now, it's a completely different way in which I manage it. So you are brand new at it and it will get better. You will learn how to manage it. And you do need to go to the lake and have beers and not check your news for a week. Like you're going to have to do that. And if you don't, you will burn out.
Yeah.
And after my congressional race, so I built this women's network and then ran for Congress. So it was like a 6 year or 4.5, 5 year stretch of nonstop. And it comes home with you. You're thinking about it all the time. It is wonderful and fills your cup, but it takes so much away. I burnt out, like professional burnout, like complete and absolutely burnt out. So you do have to be really careful of that. And I think it's important to talk about this for our listeners because if you do this, your self-sacrifice on all the levels
Yeah.
and yeah, managing it, that's a whole other podcast episode we could go into.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Mental
you
load in
should,
general. Yeah.
and I've been talking to a couple of people about this because I see your suggestion and then I raise you fascism, right? Is it's like
Mhm.
I also don't want to just like fucking tune out and take some time off and do whatever. It's like this is unprecedented. It feels like
Right.
what we are in is unprecedented, and it warrants unprecedented responses.
It does. And self-care during it because we need you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, so man, there's the extreme, the people who are whoosh. And I have friends who privately, we're talking about this podcast and all the things that I've done. My name's already on lists. Like I'm already done, you know. If there's a list, if they want to get me, they're it's not going to take them very long. So but my friends, one of them, she said, but what about you? Why aren't you scared of doing this, of getting got, getting disappeared, getting everything? I don't even know what's behind the question half the time because my response is the same as yours. I'm like, I can't exist without doing this. I think most of us feel that way. And but we are told to stay in line our whole lives, especially women We have a harder time doing this, I'd say. Um, anyway, it's a really complicated issue. So we have many more episodes coming up. What would you say to people who are listening to this and they have not taken a stand yet publicly? What advice would you give them? They're thinking about it. They're like, oh, what could I do? And guys, there's
Yeah, I
quiet
think that
ways.
the thinking about it part is
Yeah.
important because there are some people that don't have a calling to do it. And that would be so simple, right? And could be so nice at times. I think about that all the time. So I'm like, if you don't have a calling, that's great.
Dude, I do. I do. I think about it. I'm like, what kind of bags would I buy? Like, where would I travel? I would be
Literally, what would I be
so,
doing?
if
Oh my
only.
God, it would be so carefree, you know? Like if
I
only I
know.
didn't have that calling. I
So,
think when
yeah.
you do have that calling, it's interesting. I think in a way, we painted the good side of the picture of what I'm doing now, and then we painted the not so dreary side. And what I'll paint right now is kind of the combination. We used to talk about this with my brother. My brother was obsessed with sports, always watching sports, always watching every game of the Dodgers, of UCLA, of whatever. And we were like, okay, you're gonna have to get a job in sports because you're not gonna have time for your sports hobby and a job, right? So you have to combine a sports job. And I think about that all the time with like the resistance, right? Is like for me, I don't think I would have time to be a parent and an employee who was just like working a 9 to 5 where I wasn't invested in changing the world for the better and have time to try to change the world for the better. So for me, where I found the way that my life works the best is if I learn to combine two of them. And actually I combine family with it all the time, right? Like I go to protests, I bring my kids. Like most things, if I feel like they're safe, I will bring my kids to. And so I find that actually combining things is a little bit easier. And Chris, this probably goes back to your commentary that I'm not good at compartmentalizing. Like if I just lump it all together, it might be better. But I do think that that's where I do get some wins, is that I actually combined professional and power. And I think it made me more activated in all of it.
That's
Gosh, it's
great.
so
That's great
inspiring.
advice.
Yeah, it really is. And again, you've met the income level you were at before. I think that's really important. That when we do come from a place of privilege, when we do know how to make websites in 10 days, which we have the computers, we have the access, we have this at our fingertips.
That
Yes,
one I
like,
also had help with. Thankfully,
and
it was an
we
amazing
have
graphic.
friends who can help us with it.
We
I
have
mean,
friends.
this is what I'm saying. This is like an obligation of us, and whatever history is going to describe us, whatever class we're in. I don't know where we're at on the spectrum of our existence, but we all have the tools to do this, and we need to look at how we can. And it doesn't always have to be loud and out on social. There are quiet ways, and we will get into that more as the podcast continues. And Nikki, I think this is the end for us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
What can our listeners do to help you out right now?
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, I think really we're all in the same fight, so just just joining in on speaking up, right? I did see this one thing that I'll leave you with this and you can weave this in however you want. Was I had a friend post something today that I thought was really special that said, I don't speak out to change anyone else's mind. I speak out to let people know that they're not alone. And I really loved that because there are people that don't want to do this loudly, but doing anything in a show of solidarity is really a beautiful thing. And you give other people power in certain moments, and everybody has different strengths in this fight. And so if you were saying like what can we do to help out, is like everybody find their strength in the movement is like the coolest thing. But yeah, if you want to follow me, you can do all that. That's cool too. It's Nikki Vick.
The resistance, And you're
Yes.
right, we all have our roles. If you need to watch Star Wars again, go ahead. I encourage you to watch Star Wars. Come on, man. Who's Chewbacca? I don't know. Maybe you're Chewbacca. I'm not Chewbacca. I'm obviously Princess Leia all the way. So I don't know what character I am. Chris, do you have an archetype for Nikki? Do you think a brand
Well,
archetype? I'm going
I
to
kind
put
of
you on the
snuck and
spot.
saw, but it kind of seems like you guys are on the same page here.
You think I'm a
Um,
rebel?
yeah.
Chris
I
has
think that
The
when
spoken.
I
vibe I'm
said that
getting.
I'm unemployable, I was probably like, yeah, I've got to be the rebel. I think the rebel has to be unemployable by nature.
No, we need rebels. We need
Yeah.
rebels. So thank you for being a rebel.
Okay. Well, thanks, Nikki. We'll see you later.
Yeah, talk to you
Take
guys
care.
soon. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on here.
Thanks for listening to Citizen Rebel. If you like this episode, subscribe to the show and share it with a friend.
To connect with us and find more content like this, visit goodisnow.com.